Episodes of Palette Swap are suggested by viewers like you. If there's a character you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comment section down below. Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome back to Palette Swap, where I rank the costumes and character designs of your favorite fighting games. And by your favorite fighting games, I really do mean your favorite fighting games, because I'm more of a Namco guy. Today, we're looking at the dude who ruined Tekken, Akuma. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Akuma is and what we should be looking for in his character designs. By Street Fighter standards, Akuma's story is pretty simple. He's the brother of Gouken, the man who trained Ryu and Ken. For more about them, check out episode 11 of this series. Like Ryu, Akuma wants to become the strongest fighter in the world, but he believes he can only do so by forsaking his humanity. He uses an older, deadlier version of his brother's fighting style, one that taps into an evil power called the Satsui no Hado. To prove his strength, he murdered his master as well as Gouken. Though Gouken turned out to have actually survived, it's a whole thing. Akuma sees great potential in Ryu, and wants him to embrace the Satsui no Hado, so he may finally face an opponent worthy of his bloodlust. In Street Fighter II, Akuma is based on the template of Ryu and Ken, but his outfit has a few distinguishing features. His gi is tattered along the edges, which makes him look tough and violent, yet he seemingly has a spiritual side, as evidenced by his prayer beads. Of course, he stole those prayer beads from his master after killing him, but still. He's also wearing sandals, which isn't as significant but still sets him apart from the other Shotos, who are usually barefoot. His palette is mostly black, or navy blue depending on the version of the game, which is an obvious but effective way of showing that he's a dark reflection of Ryu. His hair and eyes, meanwhile, are a bright, fiery red that give him the appearance of an otherworldly demon. Despite essentially being a palette swap, the designers managed to make him unique and memorable. 6 out of 10. Unlike Ryu and Ken, Akuma didn't receive a substantial redesign in Street Fighter Alpha, which is likely because there's no Street Fighter I design for it to be based on. He's no longer wearing sandals, which makes him a tad less unique, but his ripped sleeves have been emphasized to keep him distinct from Ryu and Ken, who now also have torn gis. All in all, I don't think this is better or worse than the previous game. 6 out of 10. Akuma has a unique alternate form in the Marvel vs. Capcom series, that being Cyber Akuma. As the name implies, this is a cyborg version of Akuma controlled by the X-Men villain Apocalypse. One arm and a quarter of his face are metal, and he has wings sprouting from his back. As far as cyborgs go, this is nothing special, but it gets the job done. We'll have liked to see some signs that he's not in control of himself. Maybe he could ditch the prayer beads since Apocalypse sees no use for them, or maybe he could adopt a more rigid, mechanical fighting stance. It would also be neat if his gi was ripped on one side so we could see just how robotic his torso is. However, I know that's asking a bit much, because Cyber Akuma is a bonus character who was only included because he was easy to implement. 5 out of 10. Street Fighter III brings back his sandals and replaces his black karate belt with a simple rope. This is a small change, but characterizes him as someone who values practicality over tradition. Also, it's hard to notice, but there's a bit of gray in his hair, making him the only character who visibly aged between Street Fighters II and III. 7 out of 10. Street Fighter IV replaces his gloves with more rope, which again makes him a little more unique. It also removes the gray hair since this game takes place earlier in the timeline. Still a 7 out of 10. Street Fighter IV is where alternate costumes really took off, and Akuma got 6 brand new designs. His first consists of a tattered waistcloth and a giant knotted rope on his back, which is a common decoration in kabuki theater. This grants him a larger-than-life presence that fits his personality and role in the story. It is a pretty plain outfit, though. I think he would benefit from some bandages or armor on his arms and legs. 5 out of 10. Speaking of bandages and armor, his second ult is samurai-inspired. In Japan, samurai are seen as the peak of martial prowess, so thematically this is a perfect fit for Akuma, and the rugged Ronin look meshes well with his aesthetic. I especially like his hair, which is similar to his signature style but with a long ponytail instead of a top knot. I actually think that would be a cool addition to his classic design. His color palette is more varied than usual, featuring splashes of red, purple, and gold in addition to black. Maybe it's just because I'm a sucker for ancient and medieval stuff, but I think this is easily one of his best ults. 8 out of 10. His third ult is surprisingly low-key. He's wearing a hood that casts his face in shadow, drawing attention to his glowing eyes. And even though his hair is covered up, he still has a brightly colored focal point thanks to the flame motif. Akuma's fighting style is called Ansatsuken, which literally translates to Assassination Fist, so it makes sense for him to have a stealthy, sinister costume like this. Well, it's not exactly stealthy because he has a bright orange splotch on his chest, but you know what I mean. The ropes around his forearms and shins help balance out the design and avoid the issue I had with his first ult. 7 out of 10. I'm a fan of this costume's white variations, both because they're very different from Akuma's usual look and because they remind me of Assassin's Creed. Man, now I'm imagining how much scarier a raging demon would be if Akuma had hidden blades. His vacation outfit is bizarre. He's wearing pretty normal casual clothes, and that alone is weird enough, but then he has these giant ropes wrapped around his arms for some reason. I don't get it. This shows the weakness of having themed costumes for the entire roster, because vacation and Akuma are two words that just don't go together. I think the only way this concept could have worked is if they had fully committed to it being a joke and given him like a Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses and a flamingo pool floaty or something like that. As is, it's trying to balance being goofy and being cool, but succeeding at neither. 3 out of 10. His wild costume is a set of bat-themed armor, and it is way better than Ryu and Ken's. I don't know why they couldn't all look like this. His mask is clearly based on a bat's face, but the rest of the design takes a subtler influence from the general aesthetic of bats, such as the combination of smooth curved lines and sharp points. It also maintains Akuma's trademark elements, those being his hair, his prayer beads which have been moved to his shoulders, and his rope belt. I think this could stand to be a little battier, more along the lines of Raphael's 2P from Soulcalibur V, but it still looks good. 8 out of 10. His horror costume turns him into some sort of lava demon. His skin is dark red and covered in pieces of molten rock, and even his prayer beads glow like burning coals. He also has long black horns and claws that make him extra monstrous. His outfit consists of nothing but a tattered waistcloth, which does make sense, but feels like a retread of his first ult. 7 out of 10. Street Fighter IV also introduced Oni, a powered-up version of Akuma who's been completely taken over by the Satsui no Hado. This is a cool idea in theory, but in practice, he lacks all the traits that make Akuma a compelling villain. His personality and spirituality and intelligence are gone, replaced by a mindless rage monster. And his design, likewise, is way less interesting. He's just a big purple guy. That's it. He looks strong, but he doesn't look nimble. Surprised this wall of meat can even get off the ground, let alone do a spinning hurricane kick through the air. If you want to make Akuma scarier, this isn't the way to do it. 4 out of 10. Oni has his own selection of alternate costumes, but I don't want this video to go on forever, so it's time for another Palette Swap Lightning Round! His first ult gives him a dash of personality. The majestic flowing robes make it seem like he's ascended to a form of higher power, which the gold and white versions emphasize even further. 5 out of 10. His second ult changes his tattered pants to a tattered waistcloth and makes his hair yellow. This is so similar to his default appearance that I honestly thought it was a palette swap at first. It's a total waste of a costume. 4 out of 10. His vacation outfit gives him a demonic mask and some bits and pieces of samurai armor. It's cool, but there's not much going on, and it doesn't fit the vacation theme even a little bit. 5 out of 10. His wild costume is supposed to be spider themed, but he really just looks like a D-list Power Rangers villain. 3 out of 10. Lastly, his horror costume turns him into the Thunder God or Aijin. This is a great idea that takes advantage of Oni's unique features such as his glowing hair, but expect a god to have fancier clothing though. 6 out of 10. That brings us to Street Fighter X Tekken, where Akuma's alternate costume is once again samurai inspired. It's more heavily armored, which I like, and the half mask adds to his frightening visage. However, the lack of flowing fabric makes it look less dynamic, and the color palette is dull. Also, it doesn't do anything interesting with his hair. I think a combination of his two samurai looks could be a 10 out of 10 design, but on its own, this is a 7 out of 10. Street Fighter X Tekken also gives everyone swap costumes inspired by characters from the other series. Akuma's is based on Heihachi, specifically his Tekken 4 1P. If you remember the Heihachi episode, I wasn't very nice to that costume, but I think this version is a bit better. First of all, he has his usual prayer beads and rope belt, so it's a little more interesting than just an old man in his underwear. The combination of Akuma's hair and Heihachi's works surprisingly well. But more importantly, this is a fun crossover bonus costume rather than his main default appearance, and that context makes me way more forgiving. It's not taking the place of anything else. I still don't love it, and I would have preferred something based on Heihachi's Tekken 3 1P, but it's a definite step up from the source material. 5 out of 10. Street Fighter V moves his prayer beads to his chest and gives him a controversial new hairdo. It was meant to resemble a lion's mane, but it's often compared unfavorably to a sunflower. I agree it doesn't look great up close, mainly because it unnaturally cuts off at the chin, but I think it accomplishes the desired effects during the heat of battle. My problem with this design is more fundamental. Despite undergoing a lot of minor changes over the years, he's still basically a palette swap of Ryu. They updated his hair and prayer beads, which were already unique, but left his gi untouched. This is the game that finally let Ken come into his own, for better or worse, and it's a shame the same can't be said of Akuma. 7 out of 10. His story costume removes the top part of his gi to reveal glowing purple marks all over his body. This is cool, I guess, but shirtless Shotos have been done to death at this point. Between Ryu and Akuma and Oni, I feel like I've seen the same design a million times. 5 out of 10. His battle costume is more the same. It's inspired by mythological Buddhist warriors called Nya, which is neat, but that doesn't change the fact that this is just Akuma in ripped pants. Again. But hey, at least he has a vibrant brown and gray color palette. 5 out of 10. His Capcom Pro Tour outfit is a breath of fresh air. It's traditional Japanese formal wear consisting of a kimono, hakama, and the same ropes that I mentioned in one of his earlier costumes. It's strange to see Akuma so dressed up, but it serves to humanize him and remind us that he's not some mindless beast. I do think his classic hairstyle would be a better fit though, and he could do with some more color. 6 out of 10. If you've watched any previous Street Fighter episodes, you know how I feel about his Garuda cosplay. It's well done, but it's not very exciting, because it's a carbon copy of an existing costume. I prefer something creative like the Street Fighter Cross Tekken swap costumes. 5 out of 10. At the time of recording, all we've seen of Street Fighter VI Akuma is some concept art, so I don't think I can give it a fair and thorough analysis just yet, but my first impression is positive. He's finally stepping out of Ryu's shadow, and it seems like a natural evolution of his Street Fighter V design. I've seen some theories that his hair is white because of the Satsui no Hado, but I'm hoping it's just because he's getting older. It would create a sense of continuity from Street Fighter III where he was starting to go grey. My main concern based on this artwork is that they're going to lean too far into him being a raging wild man as opposed to a disciplined martial artist. I don't want another Oni situation. And with that, we have ranked every single Akuma costume. I think he got off to a stronger start than Ryu and Ken, but much like them, he stagnated over time. The designers seem hesitant to make any major changes to the Shotos. Well, that's just my opinion, so what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Also, let me know which character you'd like to see next. For episode 23, we'll be discussing Sun Mina from Soulcalibur, as requested by Nishan Fernando. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.